Right, our next presenter, who is actually going to be here, or is here in person, which is lovely. Branding is not simply a logo, so what do we need to know about conceptualizing an idea, an identity? Maria Mihailova is a Bulgarian graphic designer with more than 7 years' experience working for some of the most renowned creative agencies in Bulgaria, like Saatchi Saatchi, Guts and Brains, DDB, and Wunderman Thompson. Currently, she is the head of visual at the Creative Content and Tech Studio and Play, managing projects for Adidas, Kaufland and Storytel. She will talk about the power of transformation in design and how to have a more experimental approach in any brief. We'd like to welcome Maria to the stage.
Hi guys. Hi all, it's very nice to be here, despite the rain in Dubai I got. So you've heard my bio. I've been working in advertising for the last 7 years. This is my education as well. And basically I've been fascinated with advertising since I was a kid. I know it sounds maybe a bit strange, but when I was younger, all my drawings had headlines and logos on them. So I really wanted to do that during my whole career. Right now, I'm part of And Play Studio. You can see on the background, maybe you cannot see it yet. Well, I have it screening here, but I'm not sure if it's part. Just a sec. Oh, yes, okay. There it is. So yes, at End Play, we're very focused on creative, tech, and content. We try to experiment a lot whenever we have the possibility. We do a vast spectrum of services. We are really into filming. We do some experiments with 3D. We are getting into a bit more of the gaming industry as well. But today I'm going to be focusing my presentation mostly on visual identities, design, and the whole experimenting process behind it. So you've heard my bio, you probably heard my title as well, and you already know that I really like rocks. And I've been collecting those for a while now. I have different colors, shapes, textures, and I find a very straight connection to design as well, because it is very important how you transform these shapes and colors into a bit more meaningful experience. That's why I like design and advertising as well, because it's usually part of a bigger strategy. It's part of a problem-solving concept for the client, and it has a very direct message. Okay. What are we seeing now? Can you see the next slide? Maybe not yet. Okay, while we get that straight, I'm going to tell you a short story. It seems like I don't only like stones, but they've been following me through my career as well. Like a couple of years ago, when the pandemic started, we had to do a photo session for a mall. And the malls in Bulgaria at that time, they were closed for almost half a year. So we were very excited that photo session took place. And the concept behind it was don't shop, collect. We really wanted to emphasize on this collecting experience you do when you go to the mall. So the visual concept behind it was inspired by nature, as well as very velvety curtains, maximalism, and all of those things brought together. So for me to do that, we had to find some rocks for the photo session. And I started asking around and I found a friend who was working into a career mining facility, let's say. So it's like an hour away from Sofia. I drive there, I meet the guy, he's all alone into that like very hot mining area. And we started talking here and there. I explained the whole concept to him. He got very excited for us, going all the way to picking the stones. He was like, yeah, I'm going to throw in a couple of stones for you guys for free. I like the idea, I like the concept, and so on. So it turned out great so far. The day after, I went to the studio to wait for the delivery. And then I see a small truck filled with rocks on the back. And turns out the guy delivered me 1.7 tons of rocks. And the moment I saw that, I think this is the only moment in my career when I got like blacked out. I was like, what am I going to do with 1.7 tons of rocks, you know? So then I had to call my boss and tell him that he just bought 1.7 tons of rocks and he doesn't have anywhere to place them. But on the other hand, half of these were for free. So it's kind of a bargain. I don't know, maybe it's positive. So I'm not sure if you can see here the next slide. Maybe not really. Okay, so I'm going to finish up the story. This is me actually trying to sell the stones on Instagram. That did not work very well. And they are still on the same spots in the backyard of the studio 4 years later. So I hope they're not watching this now. I've also included some photographs so you can see a little bit behind the scenes how we set up the whole like scenery. It was mainly product photography, so it wasn't that huge besides the stones, and we had some difficulties moving them around. But in general, it was very interesting for me. Okay. So I like stones because you can always find something interesting inside, and it gives you a different perspective of how you can look on things. So this is our next project I'm going to show you. It's for Culturama. This is a nonprofit organization that's actually helping students study more art. They are giving an annual scholarship, and this is our first communication we did for them. It's called Metavisual. So the first thing we did, we decided that we're gonna experiment a bit more with this communication because we really wanted to showcase the process behind it. As every artist do, for them it's very important to go completely through the whole process of creation. So this is what we did for the campaign as well. We used the biggest grand piano in Bulgaria as a symbol. We actually 3D scanned the piano, and then basically this is what we got. It looked a bit like an oil painting. We wanted to improvise with it. We wanted to keep it as rough as possible. We didn't do any smoothing or coloring or anything on it. This is just the pure 3D scan. Then we decided that we're going to break it into pieces, and we're going to use those pieces as the main visual concept behind it. We actually left the texturing. You can see like inside each piece there was a different texture, and since it was a 3D model, you could actually have different angles of it. So the whole communication was very versatile and every format was different from each other. This is the key visual, the main key visual. To do it, we actually assembled it into a metaverse platform. We uploaded the 3D graphics of the piano into Spatial, and then we uploaded the letters and the logo and everything, and we made a whole exhibition in the metaverse with it, where you could actually walk in and see the pieces and they were above your head. So here I've selected some formats where you can actually see how we use different color coding for each category they were giving the scholarship for. And animations were pretty similar too, but they and they were all floating around in different colors and different pieces. And now I'm going to play you the case study so you can follow a little bit more how our process went. I don't know if you can have sound now. All right. So the next project I'm going to show you, it's a bit of a branding project we're still working on, but the curious thing about it, it had a very direct visual reference, and the client was really perfect for combining that visual reference with its needs. So the end result had brought the concept a little bit next level. Here you can see the logo animation. It's called Viking Trade. It's basically a company that is trading fish and seafood to Eastern Europe. So the obvious association is the barcode. And then I implemented some Viking runes in it. So when you read it without the barcode, you can actually see the word Viking in it. So with it, around it actually, we also developed those elements. Let's say they resemble a fish. They are also made from the same runes as the logo. And here you can see some visuals how we are going to use later on the whole concept. Here, the interesting thing about it, it was I started building this identity with the logo, which I usually don't do. But after I crafted the logo, I started working on the elements with it. The next one we're going to see, it's actually a campaign identity. We did it, I think, 2 years ago, or maybe less, but it was for a month. And I'm going to show you the logo. The campaign was called Code BNB. And the main target was to bring more awareness regarding the energy poverty in Bulgaria. So we actually opened the first Airbnb apartment without any heating in it. So you could rent it and experience what it's like not being able to afford paying for heating. So the campaign identity also has a 3D version of the logo. And when you turn it around, you can see a radiator. And we use this as the main symbol of the campaign. We actually 3D printed it and used it as a keychain for the apartment. And then we did a video with a famous Bulgarian actor, and he was explaining about the cause and the situation regarding energy poverty in Bulgaria. And he was using the logo basically as the symbol of the campaign. Here you can see a short preview of the website and the materials we did for the whole project. And here on the right, you can see the founder of the organization. She was actually using the logo as an object while she was giving interviews. So we thought that's pretty cool to being able to wear it with you. Okay, the next one, it's actually one of our most recent projects. It's a visual rebranding or refresh, so to call it. So we basically kept the origin of the brand, but changed slightly the logo and its appearance. Orange is one of the biggest bookstores in Bulgaria. They've been on the market for 20 years and they needed to have a refresh of their old logo. So we basically cleaned the letters, made them rounder. And the biggest change was actually the symbol in the beginning, where we also gave them a new meaning with the planet that forms around. You can see a little bit more here in the animation. So we wanted to focus a bit more on the new worlds you can get when you're reading a book. So that was our main concept. Then we changed the font as well. We picked a bit more heavy, like very bold font with the rounded letters. The font is from a Bulgarian font foundry called Font Fabric. They did a pretty great Cyrillic, Bulgarian Cyrillic version as well. Here you can see the main element, which is part of their logo type. And then we actually did a whole other elements that each resembles a category in their website, because they don't only sell books, they have a lot of gifts, games, board games, puzzles, child things. So the whole concept around these was actually looking into the negative space of the icons. We also added a bit of a joy to the whole identity, since this is their tagline, books, gifts, joy. So we made these characters. They are, you can see here, it's the puzzle guy, the old wise guy, the chicken on the top. So they've been using these a bit more when they are targeting children, for example. Here you can see a little bit more how we changed the whole concept. We added a bit more colors. They used to have only the orange. And then we also added different patterns, elements. The whole work was quite vast, because we did for them a whole visual guideline for about 100 pages. And we are currently working on their brand book, which is going to be printed out like an actual book. And they're going to keep it in each store. So people could actually go in and like look around the brand book and find out more about who they are and what their values are. And here I have included also the showreel. It starts with a little bit Bulgarian, but it basically says we bring joy, and then it's mostly graphic. So I'm just going to play that now. All right. So next to the here I've showcased a different type of rocks or crystals. You can see here I found on Instagram this biomaterial designer called Alice Potts. She actually do crystals out of sweat, which is really interesting. She just did a collab with Gucci. She's getting very big, I know. So I found that really fascinating because you can experiment with a lot of things and you never know what's the end result. So that's a part of our process as well when we did the second communication for Kulturama. And since it's an art scholarship, we again emphasized a bit more on the process and how are we going to make it a bit more interesting while using some technology in it. The theme of the Culturama scholarship was clouds and birds. So first I'm going to play you the showcase so you get to know what the project was, and then we're going to go through some of the visuals. Okay, so basically we got the coordinates of a bird's flight and we received the biggest spreadsheet I've ever seen. It was about 20,000 rows. So I was like scrolling very long until I got the whole data. Then we figure out a way how to import it to Blender. And then this is the result of the flight of the bird. It basically has each point of XYZ coordinate. That's why it's so pointy. It looks a bit like a net and it's quite tangled. But since it's an art scholarship, we used this tangled piece as our main visual item for the whole communication. This is the key visual. We didn't have only one. We had multiple of those because we could easily change the colors, the point of view, even the zoom of the item. And here I included some of the formats just so you can see how versatile it might look like during the communication, depending on the format. And the last project I'm going to show you today, it's quite very recent as well. We are still working on it. It's a visual branding again, and it's mostly focused on a piece of history or a piece of science that we took and converted into a visual graphic system. It's called Hypertime. Basically, it's a software that is helping you time manage your work. You can schedule meetings, you can follow your working hours and so on. The interesting behind it is that we actually got a bit deeper into the theory of hypertime and relativity. And we found out that the waves of energy constantly move towards the center and then outside again. We are right now looking into animating those waves with a code that's going to help us continue the animation forever. So we get to mimic the actual movement of the energy waves. Here is the typeface in a different colors. We used a Swedish font foundry. The font is there, so we did some corrections here and there so the letters can actually fit the concept. We have a bit rounded letters, they're a bit tilted, but we also cropped the sides of some of the letters. Here you can see a little bit more how the lines, the energy waves are going to be resizable and scalable depending on the format. And in the end, I've included also the colors. So we have the primary palette, which we're going to use just for headlines and the low type. And then the secondary palette, we're going to use only for the waves. So pretty much that was all of the projects. And I was giving the rocks as a metaphor, but for you, it could be anything else. It could be Asian rules or even the little lines the wind makes on the dunes or marine life. You can find your inspiration in everything, and you just need to look a little bit deeper into detail when you're working on a concept. So I wish you find your type of rock as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Maria. We've got a couple of questions coming in for you. So the first one, are the colors of the flight pattern chosen for the aesthetics of the previous project? Do they have are they for aesthetic purposes only, or is there a connection to the actual bird's flight?
You mean the birds project?
Yeah.
Well,
Can you flick back
to
sure. That one?
This one. Can you see?
That one, yeah. So are the colors for a specific purpose or aesthetic reasons only?
Well, not really, because since we had so many formats, each format was in different color. So there wasn't any regarding preference over one, let's say. Here you can see, for example, on the square formats, they're all completely different. So we wanted to make each visual different regarding to the category. So for example, the first one, it's visual art. The second one is dancing. And the third one, it's music. So we wanted to make them a bit more versatile from each other. That's why.
Great, thank you. We have a question in the theatre. If you answer the question, and I'll repeat it for everybody online. I'll just repeat the question, sorry, for the people online. So the question was, hopefully I'll get it correct, that a lot of the work is based on scientific exploration, and how do you find clients that would agree to that type of work? Or is it in fact you advise the client that this is the best direction to go?
I think a lot is depending on the project, because if you do a branding from ground zero, let's say you don't have anything, you just know the name, then it's very easy to have this creative approach, because clients are usually very happy when there is an extra backstory you can back up your identity with. It's not just, okay, I like this font, I'm going to use this as a logo. You have an extra power of persuading them when you have an extra background story. So, for example, with the Hypertime logo, in the beginning when we showed the logo, it was like, okay, it looks nice, I like it, it will do the job, I'll put it on the website. But then on the second slide, we actually explain how we got inspired and why it looks like it is. And they really liked the whole base story. So I think it's giving people a bit of an extra, even when they're telling other people about their brand, because they go like, hey, you know that I did that brand and it's inspired by energy waves. You know, it's just giving them a bit more of a background story, which they can very easily later on use for their, for example, brand voice or tone of voice or how they want to communicate. It's helping them shape who they are a bit better. I think that's...
Continuing on just with this project, we have somebody asking if this form of art, this tracking of something, can be applied to other life forms, such as fish.
Okay, probably, yes.
How did you discover that you could do that?
Okay, so when we approached this brief, it was, let's say, maybe 2 weeks of research and thinking how exactly we can execute this. And then we found a Bulgarian organization that's helping preserving birds. And they usually do such tracking, so they know where the birds go, when are they coming back. They follow basically their life so they can preserve them. So we worked very closely with this organization, and the data, it's because of them. They had the trackers. We went there, we filmed, we got the data. It was very collaborative approach. So I suppose anything is possible if you do your research and you find the right partner in such cases.
How did you make the original connection from Culturama to the project, from the project to the birds?
Well, their team for the year, they have like a very like vast program with events during the year. So their theme was birds and sky. So there was already a connection there. So we just explored how we can turn that into art using some technology. And then, I mean, in Bulgaria, there aren't that many organizations who can track a bird. So it was quite an easy search.
Thank you. Another question. Your work is quite futuristic, metaverse and codes. What's the role AI plays in your work? And do you use it increasingly more as it develops, or encourage employees to have these skill sets?
Well, yes, we do use AI. I think last year we did a campaign for Adidas in Bulgaria, and the spot we actually filmed for them, half of these shots were actually AI stable diffusion shots that we integrated into the real shots we actually filmed. And the editing in the end was quite impressive because they were jumping from regular footage to like crazy AI generated shots with the same surrounding. So yes, we've been trying to catch the wave of what's coming up next. For example, the campaign we did in the metaverse, again for Kulturama, it was 2 years ago. So during this time, it was quite a big hype to do and try to improvise with the metaverse. But nowadays AI, it's coming and it's going to be staying even longer than the metaverse, I think.
I'm curious to know how successful the cold B&B was.
So the Cold B&B, since it's a non-profit organization that it's actually giving us the brief, it was I think it was about a month. So they didn't have a huge media budget as well as if you compare it to, I don't know, Adidas or another big brand behind it. That's normal, I guess. So they were relying a lot on PR. So regarding that point, I think PR-wise it was quite successful because they were walking around TV shows and explaining about the cause. They also invited the mayor of Sofia to rent the cold B&B and talk a bit more about the problem. So regarding that scale, I think it was successful. It didn't have like huge, for example, media campaign like billboards or on the street, for example, but it was quite targeted to the problem and very PR friendly. They were getting a lot of mails and interviews with the organization that did that.
Hi, Maria.
Hi.
Brilliant presentation, very interesting approach to branding and identity. And I was curious, when do you decide when an identity needs a third dimensional extension? On what basis do you decide that, okay, it needs to go beyond 2D and you need to have a 3D component that supports the identity?
Okay, well, such an example is the code B&B again, because it has the flat dimension and then the 3D shape. I really don't know how that happened. I think we were sketching around, trying to see, well, the first thought was, of course, heat and how we can have an association or visual reference with heat. And we did a lot of sketches, and I think first we discovered that we can do the radiator, and then later on we shaped the letters as such. So we could actually later transform it to 3D shape.
You have I mean, Nplay has obviously a very interesting way and different processes of making visuals and therefore campaigns. Is this important? Is this what makes you stand out amongst other agencies, do you think?
I think it's mostly our approach of experimenting, yes, and our desire to be a bit more forward with what's coming up next and how we can actually implement that into your brand strategy. Yeah, I think that's it.
Makes your competitive edge. Does anybody else have any questions? Anyone online? If not, I would just like to thank Maria for being here in person, and I apologize for the technical glitch, but we got there in the end. Hopefully you don't have to remain in a wet Dubai any longer. Hopefully the sun's shining for you now. So, but thank you for coming from Bulgaria to attend our festival. Thank you very much.